what I always felt is, I deal with corporate relations, and myself and my teams have a lot of discussion with companies in terms of hiring, internship and all that. And by and large, I don't make that initial discussion to start with. They will try out and then they come with the feedback, and then I take the next step and so on. So one thing what I felt with my teammate is they keep on connecting more and more to the same person, right? And it it looks like they crossed a limit, and now it is no more a keenness; it is absolute hardcore desperateness, right? So at that point of time, I review that. I have never spoken to a corporate without reviewing with my team that what they did before. And if they have done this, I tell them like, look, I will have only one interaction, not more than that. And in that one interaction, I try to make a judgment. And thereafter, even if my team says, sir, you speak once more, I said, I'll not speak. Right? And I leave it a huge pass. And even if they don't turn back, I'm okay with it because I think that negotiation should stop there. Right? That's one. Number two, I always think like you have to control your desperateness in any form. And I try to play it very differently. There are different styles of negotiation. I'm going to talk about that. I want you to explain what is your style. One style, what I used to follow or I have read a lot is, as he rightly said, don't go to a negotiation without alternatives. Right? If you have an alternative action for what you're claiming, you are in control because you will not give in too much because anyway you have something to do, right? But don't disclose the alternatives to the other person. This is what most of the negotiation theory says. But my kind of style is very different. When I go and speak to someone on negotiation, I do two things. One, I have to communicate to him that you are not so important for me. That I always think that this gets him into my control and my terms. So first I try to establish that. Number two, I have explicitly spoken about my alternatives to him. Boss, these are my alternatives, sir. Chahiye to let's discuss. Right? This is the way I open up by getting him into control and also exposing my alternatives to him. But sometimes what happened, if the other side is very powerful, they may not engage me even in the next round of negotiation, right? But in many places, this style has won me, right? I have got a lot of things. Currently, there was one vendor who was negotiating with me for something. He started off with 12 lakhs and now I've brought him to 1.5 lakhs now, right? And by showing alternatives, by showing him not picking his phone call, a lot of things I tried. So therefore, everyone will have a style, and I'm not claiming that what I do is right. I have lost a lot of things through this. What is your style and how do you deal with the other side negotiating?
Sir, I resonate to what you said ki you tell the other party ki what you have in your So in this negotiation also I told him I have this alternative but I'm not going that because I want this deal to happen. That is there on my plate, but I'm not doing that. But I want this deal to happen. That's the reason I'm sitting with you. So it all depends upon how the negotiation goes. Sometimes you don't do it. Sometimes you do it seeing the situation. So I feel it's a situation based thing ki you are dealing with what situation, how desperate you are, how desperate the other person is, and then you recast yourself according to the situation.
Okay. So you are dynamic in your negotiation depending on what the other side shows you.
Absolutely.
Keep changing your styles.
And absolutely, because that's my way of doing this. I cannot say this is my style. Okay. Because end of the day, I have to make the deal with this person or with some other person. I have to make the deal. So if I have to make the deal, I have to be flexible. I have to be dynamic in my negotiation skills with him. So it all depends on how it plays out at that moment of time. But I would love to hear from others also.
When it comes to vendors, I always go with options, right? I have B, A, you are A, I have B, C, D, E. I have that, and I've done enough homework of doing it, and including any vendor, right?
Would have had this vendor. Powerful.
So what?
See, let's assume if there is Honeywell alone supplies that equipment, or GE alone has that component.
Right. No, that issue is always there, but most of it you have options. I don't think so. There is anything, you do not have options. And this current, situation of the world where we are, there is always options. But when flip it, right, when I'm hiring somebody and I know that for my GCC, that role is very critical because that decision power will come in here to our organization, like, or to this, location. I need to get that person, and if that budget is okay, I've already negotiated with my, global leaders. This is the budget. Why would I even to do? If that particular person is suitable, I would go and hire.
All your applicant will see this video.
See, the other part is also, what are you negotiating on?
Exactly. That was the summing part of it, right? What are you negotiating for, right?
Is it compensation?
Aha.
There are a million other things you can do.
Million other things. Like, so whether I need that vendor, I know I have it. But if I need that objective, what is that objective you're meeting while doing this negotiation is very important. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think I'll give you some examples, right? If I'm hiring someone, maybe I was in a startup, the title was negotiable, right? You have much more flexibility on time. If you are in let's say, services company, maybe international travel or something, international exposure is a big deal, right? In some cases, I'm hiring very senior people. They want a few hours a day for their own research. I said, okay, take it, no issues, right? Someone will do some remote work flexibility. So, I think you have to figure those red herrings out. And on the other hand, if we are selling a service, right? I'll give you an example wherein we won the deal because the numbers stayed the same, but I think 2 or 3% of the deal we structured as a flexible pool of hours, saying that, Mr. Customer, it's a services deal. These 3% you can use to do whatever you want. You tell me 3 months in advance, I'll give you the resources. And they loved it because for that 3% they would have had to have 10 other people, right? So I think those red herrings, you have to get very innovative in those things. Sometimes you hit something which is like,
It will break the discussion itself.
You
But I think
always.
in your case, I think it was like you kind of sweeten the deal, and then it's like a win-win for both. That's
no,
what
actually
I think.
they paid for them. It was part of the price. They were paying for it. It's just that the flexibility. That flexibility doesn't cost me. Actually, when I put that thing in the deal into my system for the margin calculation, margin improved because I could put much more junior people in those pool of hours, right? So think of it, just a small thing.
No, we have talked about this. I think a lot of time we'll start looking at it as a win and a lose. But we have all talked about saying how do you make it into a win-win rather than a win and lose, right? And then the other vector that I will try to bring in is like, maybe a short term versus a long term. A lot of time negotiation, you might take a short term so-called as pain or a loss for a long term gain or something like that, right?
So are you negotiating with for one time, or are you negotiating with someone
Many
who will
vendors,
continue to negotiate?
vendors whom we deal with, they come and say that we'll do a deal, but we tell them, okay, you can use our logo, for example, or you can use our testimonial or something. So for them it's good because the
brand value will
find
increase.
more brands who say, okay, this guy is using it, you can also use it, kind of thing. So then they're able to short sell for me a little bit better for me. So it's good for me, but it also helps them. So that's another way of doing it. Yeah.
No, that's something which we also do many times, in the sense that when we hire from contract labor, there's a typical clause that we cannot take people on our headcount in the next 1 year or so. But then just to ensure that we have a long-term relationship with that contractor or subcontractor, we ensure that they get repeated business from us so that they are not losing out. And at the same time, we also have an opportunity to take their people as our full-time equivalents, because there are some projects where we cannot have contractors. There's a clause that we cannot have it. So it's looking at a win-win situation, and so the negotiation will depend on what we expect as an outcome, and whether I need that vendor in the long term. And if there are big vendors, then we also go to our headquarters and use their support to, I think, back us up so that we can get a better deal with those vendors. So it works depending on the situation.
I've been thinking on your specific question on what could be that personality trait that I might have while negotiating. So besides all of this, there are 2 points which are hitting my mind and when I'm negotiating and what happens. One is I try to also establish who is the real decision maker. I don't want to waste my negotiation with somebody who doesn't have a decision-making authority. So first is, for me, it's very important to establish the decision-making authority. So that is point one, because Otherwise, it's going to incorporate a lot of anger and frustration in me because there's no results coming out because the guy was never a decision-making guy. So that is point one, which I definitely look at. Second thing for me is my 80-20 rule. I will make sure that I listen 80% and I talk 20% because then that 20% becomes relevant, and the entire conversation is around that 20% because rest 80 was never, because I never reacted to that 80%. So the point is that these are probably my two personality traits to answer your specific question on
So there is a saying that in negotiation, silence has a lot of value.
Yeah.
Lot of value, and there are a lot of negotiators who win by being very silent on the table, just by making the other person
I've
to
done that. So
speak,
I've
yeah.
allowed the finance head to do all the part of it. I come only in the end. Only when, as he said, right, who is the decision maker, when he comes into picture, I go in the end. Okay, all this is done. This is what is my card. That also plays.